This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hello and Happy New Year from Deluxe Edition. I am your host, Casey Shearer. Joining me, as always, Ray, the podcaster.
What the hell's going on there, Casey?
Good afternoon, Ray.
Good afternoon.
How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm
How
having
was
a
your
time
New
of
Year's?
I'm having a time of my life over here.
How was your New Year's last night?
How the fuck would I know?
It's amateur hour, man.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah,
go out- you don't go
we
out
don't
on
do
New
we
Year's Day.
don't do amateur hour. Come on, Casey.
No.
I got 364 other days of the year to get fucked up.
That's right. We're having a good time here on New Year's Day. Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to 2023. This is going to be a good year. We're going to get right into this awesome interview with Kevin VanHentenryck right after these words.
This is where we do the house cleaning, right?
Right after the house cleaning.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Check out all the other great shows on our network, the Deluxe Edition Network, at deluxeeditionnetwork.com. Did I say that right?
DeluxeEditionNetwork.com. Yeah, that's what it says.
And the podcast of the month this month is
All of them.
all of them. I'll have to figure that out and add it to the show. We're recording a little early here.
No, let's just do all. Let's do all of them to start the new year. Let's do all of them.
All right. Check out all of the shows on the network at deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
And I'm gonna say we'll do the promo for all of them at the end of this episode, because if we do it up front, it'll be way too long. So can we do it at the end of this one?
Sure.
All right. See, that's called the art of the deal right there.
If you'd like to make a deal with us, head over to patreon.com/deluxeeditionpod or head over to our YouTube channel and join the channel. You can join for as low as $2.99 a month. I will send you the episode immediately after we record, and we have been cranking them out. Mm-hmm. So come get some. If you want to buy a T-shirt, go over to whatamaneuver.net/collections/deluxe-edition. If you'd like to find us on Instagram or Twitter, you can do so by going to Deluxe Edition Pod.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find all of our other shows over at deluxeedition.show.
Yeah.
And Ray, before I have my surprise here, please tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me at the 10 Cent Beer Night Podcast. I am the host of that thing. And you can also go to TeePublic, 10 Cent Beer Night Podcast. And not only can you get my gear right now, you can get Deluxe Edition and Barrel Age Flicks official bootleg merchandise.
Official bootlegs.
Goddamn right.
It's amazing. And Ray, to start this new year,
yes,
we are sponsored today by GetSlicks.com. They got all your winter hat needs over there. GetSlicks.com. And tell them that Deluxe Edition sent you, and they will give you a little discount over there. We're not quite set up just yet with the code, but that will be coming soon. But these hats are fucking awesome. This one says "Stay High." It's great hat, like really good quality. So check that out. And now our show with Kevin VanHentenryck.
Let's do this shit.
Kevin, how are you, man?
I'm pretty good. Where are you guys located?
I'm in Tallahassee, Florida.
And I am in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio.
Excellent. I've done Wasteland a few times.
Yes.
And you're up in upstate New York, right?
Near Woodstock. Yeah, we had 10 inches of snow the other day.
Oh wow. What took you up there to that area?
My partner at the time had property up here, and I was about to lose my studio in Tribeca. And so we came up here camping on my old motorcycle, and it's spectacularly beautiful up here. And we said, why don't we live up here? And neither one of us could figure a reason not to.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there. How close? I'm sure you're familiar with Levon Helm, right?
Yep.
How close to you is the barn?
10 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's right
Nice.
kind of around the corner. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with that area. I've been to the barn twice. I saw a couple bands there. I saw the Wait there, and I saw Willie Nelson's son there, Lucas Nelson.
Nice.
Play there. Yeah, it was really awesome.
Excellent.
And then I've also been to Hunter Mountain, which is a little bit further up the road. But when I first started researching for you, I found out that you are a sculptor and that you have a beautiful sculpture of Rip Van Winkle there at Hunter Mountain.
I do. Thank you.
Tell us about that, because I'm like pissed off at myself because I've been to the Hunter Mountain. I've been to Mountain Jam twice, and somehow I missed this Rip Van Winkle. I don't like, where is it exactly on the property?
Well, are you a skier?
No.
Okay. There's a run called K27, which is an expert run, and right near the top of it is the zip line jump off point, and it's just like a few minutes down this forest path from the zip line launch pad. That was a project. I knew David Slutsky, who is one of the owners of Hunter Mountain, through the local arts council, and he knew I was a stone carver. And he said a few times, we should do a Rip Van Winkle at the mountain. And I don't know, the third time he said it, maybe I called his bluff, and turned out he was serious. So in those days, they had the summer music festival program was 40 some days. It was all summer long. And so we figured it would take 5 years. However, as soon as we started it, they started cutting back the number of festival days. And by the time we finished it, 14 years later, they were down to 12 festival days per season. And blue stone's a medium hardness stone, and I don't get a whole lot done in 12 days.
Yeah, wow. So it was an 8-ton piece of stone when you started, right?
Yes.
Was it just there, or I mean, you said it's like at the top of this mountain. So how did you have it delivered there if it wasn't there?
David and I drove all over the mountain looking for some natural stone that was already there, and the problem was the cliff faces that had been exposed for a long time, probably since the last ice age, were badly weathered. And everything else that was exposed had been dynamited by the crews to make the ski runs. So we ended up having to bring in a block of stone from a local quarry. We worked for the first half of the project, 5 or 6 years, down at the bottom by the lodge. And it happened that they had to replace the cable on one of these lifts. Now you're talking about 1-inch braided steel cable, and there's miles of it, so it's a heavy duty industrial process. So they had a machine big enough to lift it at both the bottom and the top at the same time. So we decided to just go for it, and we put like a foot of soft gravel in the bed of a truck, put the half finished piece in that, bedded it in the gravel, strapped it down, and they drove it up the hill.
Oh my God.
It was much less crazy than I thought it was, than I thought it would be. What was interesting was getting the stone into the location, which is right out on the edge of a cliff overlooking the valley. It's a really cool spot. And next time you're in Hunter Mountain, you should check it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to. Can you take this? So if you take the ski lift up, like from the lodge, if you take the ski lift up, will that get you closer?
You're within about 5 or 6 minutes walk of the piece.
Great. All right.
If you ask the lift guys, they will direct you. And if you let me know, if I can, I'll join you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
So
when you moved it from the bottom to the top, it was significantly lighter than when you had started, because you had already started on the project a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think we were maybe down to 6.5 tons in that range. It's hard to tell.
Sure.
But we'd taken a little bit off of it. It's still a big rock. Even now finished, it's still a large object. So it's going to stay right where it is for a very long time.
Yeah, if you're only listening, I highly recommend you coming over to our YouTube channel, because I'll add pictures into all this. If that's okay, Kevin. If I add pictures,
you have there's a shot of it. There's a shot of it on my website.
Great. KevinVanH.com. Awesome. So by the time Basket Case came along, Kevin, you had already decided that you were finished with acting. I've heard you say that a bunch, but I've never heard the reason as to why you were finished with acting.
I was in my second year at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and Annette and I went up to Little Carnegie Cinema, which was around the corner from Carnegie Hall. And in the 70s, it was like an art house. So you could see like old Ingmar Bergman films or Fellini films. And they were playing an old Ken Russell film called The Savage Messiah, which is about a real sculptor who lived in the time of World War I. And in the course of the film, they showed, the actors doing the sculpture, but they showed a close-up of a real carver's hands working a block of marble. And you can hand carve marble fairly quickly. And I was so turned on by the idea of a rock as a plastic medium. I became kind of obsessed with that. And so around the corner from the Academy on 30th Street was the Sculpture House, which was a sculpture supply place. So I started walking by and looking in the window, trying to figure it out. And then when I worked up my nerve enough, I went in and walked around like I knew what I was doing and left. When I had what I hoped was enough money saved up and my nerve worked up, I went in and asked some poor sales girl every question I could imagine, bought 3 chisels and a hammer, went and found a rock in the East Village, and I set up a workbench under what's now called the Highline, which is an elevated railroad track in the 30th and 11th Avenue vicinity. In those days, it was a completely abandoned, derelict neighborhood. It was me and the girls working 11th Avenue. That was all it was down there. And I set up a workbench under the railroad track so I'd be out of the rain and stuff. And the first moment that I touched steel to stone, I had this incredible revelation that this was what I was meant to do.
Do you know how many sculptures you've done to this point, and do you have a favorite?
Well, the Rip Van Winkle is pretty up there. Also, the Jill McCrudden Memorial, which is a rearing horse and rider, and Jill is on Star, her horse, in her wedding dress, and it's rearing up. Those are two of my favorites. Yeah.
How big is that one?
That one's 7 feet tall, but it's actually less. It's 6 tons.
Wow.
Just a little bit less.
Yeah, he's just throwing out 6 tons. Like, yeah, it's only 6 tons. That's a lot of weight. That's big.
Kids can't come and tip it over or steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but was there something that happened with the acting that you wanted to? You were like, "Fuck this! I'm not acting anymore. I don't want to do it."
Not really. I was just overcome by my interest in stone carving.
See, this reminds me of the first time I saw the Ramones. Like, I saw lightning in the room, and I knew immediately that I wanted to be a musician. Like, and if I kind of think that's what he's describing. The first time he put metal to stone, he saw lightning in the sky, and everything just opened up to him. Like, that's what he just described. That's kind of the same feeling I got the first time I saw the Ramones. That's how I felt.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, an epiphany, a life-changing event, and that moment powers me still to this day.
That's awesome. When I first started looking at what I do, this is my process. When I want to interview someone, I'll look at their website and I'll just look over things, and then I'll contact them. And I don't do any real research until, that they approve to be on the show. So when I first saw the pictures of the sculptures and everything on your website, I thought that you were actually mixing concrete and like molding all of these things together. But then I when I started researching, I found out that you're actually taking these pieces of rock and carving them to look, which is even more amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It's just some of the stuff that you do is mind blowing. Tell us some of the tools that you're using.
Well, I want to digress just a little bit. The other part of my interest in stone carving is this material, bluestone, which is what we have here in the Catskill Mountains, is a relatively young age in geological terms. It's only 360 million years old, and the scratches that we make in it has the potential to last thousands of years outdoors with no maintenance. Long after everything I've touched has been forgotten about, these objects may still be around. That just blows me away.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of my interest. The other thing is, we respond to what I call the presence of a material. For example, plastic, has a cheap man-made presence. Glass is a little more substantial, but it's still man-made. But everyone, you see an unusual stone on the path or on the beach, you pick it up to look at it. We respond to that. And it's because of the age and the way this material was created. We're talking about hundreds of millions of years of mammoth pressure and heat to form these stones, granite and limestone and bluestone and marble. And I think that's what we respond to. That's a diamond or an emerald. These things are created deep in the earth under this ungodly pressure and heat over millions and millions of years. So that's I think why I respond to stone. I'm sorry, I forgot your question now.
No, that's all right. That's awesome. I love how you can definitely tell how passionate you are about the field.
Thank you.
Because you're self-taught as well.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say it almost sounds like it's sacrilegious to carve it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Well, but don't get me wrong. I would, I'm all for carving it, but there's a moment where you look at it and go, should I do this?
Well, when you're working in stone, you have to. It is a little bit of a dialogue. You have to be sensitive to the stone. For example, I can't remember if there's any overhead shots of the rip in the website, but if you were to stand over the rip and look down on him, he is closer to the back of the block rather than in the center of it. And the reason for that is we roughed it out with a huge, kind of a 90-pound drill that you see them breaking up the pavement with. And right where the head was going to be, there was a softball-sized lump of clay, which bluestone being a sedimentary stone, you find stuff in it, fossils, bits of clay, So we had to move the whole figure back into the stone by about 8 or 10 inches to get past that deposit of clay there. So you have to listen to the stone. It's a good example is so after we moved up to the top, I would always try to go as early as possible because the lifts wouldn't open till I think 9 or 10. So if I got there at 7, I would have a couple of hours undisturbed before people started coming up. And so one day I'm there, and it's fairly early in this. This guy's really plastered already, and I'm sitting there with a book and 2 files and all my papers and a tape measure and a pencil, and I'm just looking at the stone, trying to figure out what the hell was I thinking, And he comes down the path and says, taking a break, huh? But in fact, no, the actual material removal with a jackhammer and a carbide tip chisel is fairly rudimentary. It's technology from the 1890s. The trick is to know which material to remove and which to leave.
Yeah. Going back to what Ray said about the, almost, I forget the wording that he used about
sacrilegious,
sacrilegious about not cutting. Has there ever been something that you found and were like, this is too good to cut like this?
Yeah, often that will, for example, if I'm doing a relief piece, for example, that's one side of a stone. And often I will feature the good side not to be carved. So the sculpture, the intrusion, my intrusion into the stone is on the B side.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Shit. I had a question, but I forgot.
This is so cool, man. Thank you for this, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
This is our pleasure, man.
Yeah, big fans,
absolutely.
Man. Well, before we get into, tell us about the tools. You said they date back to the 1800s. So I've seen you using some air chisels. I mean, they weren't using air chisels back then, were they?
Yeah, the compressed air technology is from the 1890s.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm sure our tools are better now than they were when they started. And I don't think they had carbide tips then. Like you get a circular saw blade that's carbide tip, lasts longer. Yeah. So the bluestone is really a blue-gray sandstone, and that sand functions just like sandpaper. So while you can carve it with a plain steel chisel, like a hardware store chisel, it won't hold the edge very long. So all the chisels are carbide tipped, which can also then be used on the real hard stones like granite and basalt.
Okay. I did remember my question. So let's just say for the Rip Van Winkle, for instance, because I'm familiar with that piece. Are you just seeing that in your head and carving it like as you go, or are you making like pencil marks, where to cut here, where to carve here. Like, how do you envision how to do that?
Well, first of all, the Rip Van Winkle incorporates two moments from the story into one visual. The moment where he wakes up and the moment where he realizes his predicament are both presented in the Rip Van Winkle sculpture. Because, again, you have an object that may last thousands of years, and how many folk tales from 1,000 years ago do you know? So the piece has to work independent of all support material. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
So are you making any marks on the stone as you're carving? Like, how are you envisioning?
Yes.
How to do it?
Like the story with the guy that came out and thought I was taking a break. Generally, the way I work is I'll lay out 2 or 3 hours worth of work. I want to take this out of here. I'm going to take this down and push this back in. And then I'll put on the gear. I'm wearing all kinds of safety gear, dust mask, a whole bit. And that will be laid out with either a lumber crayon or a carpenter's pencil right directly on the stone. And so once I've got the gear on and the tool running, you don't want to be trying to think about it. It's like you don't decide which trees to cut down with the chainsaw running in your hand. Right. So lay out some work and then accomplish that. And by then my hands are trashed and I'm ready for a break anyways. Sure. Repeat.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I've recently built, I'm a roofer by trade. And I recently built these for my sister-in-law. I built these like fairy houses on these stumps. And I'll post pictures in the video here for everyone to see. But basically the same thing. Like, I was just making it up as I went, and I just would take a break, step back for a while, smoke a joint, and try and figure things out, and continue on from there.
Yeah. Well, that's what I would tell people. When they would ask how I'm doing it, I would say, I have no idea. I'm making it up as I go along. But with stone, the process moves a lot slower. And that's one of the other things I like about working in stone. Like a good sauce, the longer it's on the back burner, the better it turns out. And I always tell that if I have a client who wants a job, the longer I have to think about it, to consider all the aspects of it, the better it will be. Because there's things, you can look at something for weeks and then suddenly, oh shit, look at that. Some new aspect of it will occur to you. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I've worked with very little stone. Like I've done a lot of slate roofing. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I did a lot of slate work there, and it irks the shit out of me when I see slate roofs being torn off because people don't know how to replace the slate. It's a dying trade, and a lot of people aren't learning anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it anymore. I can tell you that. I'm not getting up there to do it. I watch people work now.
Yeah. We were all younger once.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Kevin, before we get into, of course, this is going to go into a basket case as it always will. I just watched you in a movie called Rapturous. Rapturous?
Kabbalah Myth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tell us about that. How did that come about? You were really good in that.
Well, thank you. Geez, I don't know. He saw me on Facebook, I think, and asked if I wanted to be in this film. Debbie Rochon's in it. Joe Bob Briggs is in it.
Yeah. I was really surprised to see Joe Bob in that. And I saw in the very opening of it that Artie Lang is an executive producer of it.
Yeah. And the young guy that played the rapper was fantastic. He's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good little low budget movie.
Yeah, it was fun to do. Fun, get to hang out with Joe Bob a little bit.
Yeah. Very cool. One other movie that I saw you in was let's see, Dry Bones. You did really good in that too. The opening scene with you it's kind of a little creature under the bed that gets you in that.
Gregory Lamberson, yeah. And there's an interesting factoid about Greg is in Basket Case 2 when Belial takes over Dwayne and Dwayne is wheeling him out of the hospital. The basket, you can see the basket moving around. That's Greg in the basket.
Get the hell out of here! Really?
I don't know if he wants that story told. I haven't. But anyways, we all start somewhere. But
very cool.
Yeah, that was another one that was fun to do. He was willing to cast me in something other than the Dwayne nerdy kind of a character.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah, it's really good. For anyone that hasn't seen those movies, Rapturous and Dry Bones, definitely check them out with Kevin. Really good. Yeah, I had Greg on. I talked to Greg a long time ago on another podcast that I did years ago. Going back to Joe Bob, you're working with Joe Bob. So he was pretty instrumental in the reason for Basket Case being out there, right? So I just watched it on his full marathon the other day. I refreshed my brain on it. He actually was at the Cannes Film Festival and saw this and then was waiting for it to come back to the States so he could show it in Texas, and then found out that the distributors had cut all of the gore out, right? And made it into like a comedy film. And he said he wasn't going to show it unless they added everything back into the movie. And when he's telling this story on the drive-in, like he gets choked up about it. Like he's very tied to this movie. He loves this movie.
He helped make Basket Case what it is today because he wouldn't show the cut version. So Frank snuck him an uncut version, which people liked. And so the distributor just very quietly, with no fanfare, just started switching the cut version with the uncut version, and then it started to take off. So
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very cool. So I tried to write down a bunch of questions here that you haven't been asked about Basket Case before, because we've talked to a bunch of actors that get asked the same questions constantly over and over again. So we also have a bunch of fan questions as well. So the very first time we see you, when you're walking with the basket in Basket Case, the very first one, the drug dealer on the side of the road, was he just like, I feel like that scene was so real, because I've seen guys like that at festivals and stuff. Like, was he an actual drug dealer, or was he an actor?
No, he was an actor.
Really?
Yeah, he was very good. That was kind of guerrilla filmmaking, because those shops in Times Square, that's the old Times Square, and I'm glad we got some of it in the film, but they weren't happy about us pointing cameras at their storefronts. So we were threatened and shit, so we had to kind of just go for it and run. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So like a lot, you mentioned like guerrilla filmmaking. A lot of that was done without permits, right? Like, I mean, there wasn't enough money to be buying permits for everything, right? Like, for instance, you running down the street naked during the dream sequence. Like, I imagine there was no permit pulled for that, right?
No. But again, that was Tribeca in 78 or 9 when we shot that scene in like February, the coldest moment of the year.
Look at that crazy white boy.
Now, the beauty of it is, in those days, after rush hour, Tribeca was deserted. There was no traffic. There was nothing. So we swept the streets to make sure there was no glass or shit. And we had a heated vehicle on each end and just went for it.
It's amazing. One of the
Have you heard the story of why that scene is in the movie?
I don't know. Maybe.
I haven't heard it.
No, tell us.
So the original script called for Belial running through the street. And as soon as we got the effect, we realized not even close. No way. We're going to put him on a skateboard and pull him. So Frank was really bummed out about that and spent some time, a matter of weeks, thinking about it. And one night he calls me up and he said, I figured this out. And even though running through the streets naked wouldn't have been my first choice, it's the perfect solution to that scene. That's Frank Henenlotter.
Yeah.
That's all. And you had no problem doing it?
It was a drag, but it's about the total. You want to keep in mind the total, and like a good script or good dialogue between the characters, if it advances the story, if it works in the story arc, that's what I do.
Now, you and Frank, before that movie was made, did you already know each other? Because it's easier for someone you already know to convince you to do something really dumb, like running through the streets naked. Did you know him before the movie?
Yes. So I was at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and Ilsa, who plays the social worker with the glasses, he was the assistant registrar at the Academy. And Ruth Newman, who plays our aunt, was the registrar. And so, anyways, one day Ilsa says to me, I know this guy that makes films. You should meet him. So I said, okay. So I went and met him. We hung out in his apartment in the West Village a little bit and just bullshitted. And he gave me 3 extra parts in the film prior to Basket Case, which is called Slash of the Knife. I play an inmate in an institution, a tall woman in a wedding, and something with railroad track. I forget the third one. But he liked the way I worked. I was professional, and I was always on his case about using acting students. We need the experience, the work, the real, blah, blah. So I don't know, 6 or 8 months later, he calls me up and he has this idea for a film. And would I like to hear it? So on the spot, he talks through the entire film, doing the parts, the action, and the shots, and the feel, the vibe. When Frank does a pitch, he's 100% into it. And, to play 2 entities that consider themselves one entity, that's an actor's dream.
Yeah. Who played young Dwayne? I mean, because the casting for that was, he really looked a lot like you.
That was probably Edgar. I don't know. I met him briefly when we were in Haines Falls doing those shots, but I didn't know him. I don't know who got him.
Okay. Yeah. It was great casting. Whoever did it. So the scene in the first one where Belial is destroying the room, where he goes crazy, is that stop motion, or how did they do that scene? That's pretty wild, because there's nothing around him. It's just him going around the room. Yeah,
it was Frank's foray into stop motion, and he was not. Initially, he wasn't satisfied with it, and he said that he threw the can of film across the room and just let it sit there for days or weeks, and then suddenly it occurred to him it was kind of funny, and so then they kind of just went more in that direction. I'm
not sure why I have this all the way down here. I should have asked this at the beginning of the show, but I've heard you say in other interviews that you were a shy kid, and that's what got you into acting. The guy we talked to on Christmas, Sam Benjamin, he said the exact same thing. Like I was a shy kid, and that was the last thing that I ever wanted to do was get in front of people. Like I remember I hated talking in front of people, in front of class. So like what made what turned the switch?
Cindy Aldrich. So I'm in, I don't know, 9th or 10th grade English class. And at the end of the class, we're all leaving, and I got my eye on Cindy, I have no idea what to do. And I hear her talking, or the teacher asks her how the play is going. And they're chatting about that. So I'll be in plays, and then I can meet Cindy. So I went and auditioned for one. I can't even remember the name of the first one anymore, but the play previous to that, the one Cindy was in, turned out to be her last one. But you win some, you lose some.
So you acted then did you act all the way through high school then and plays and stuff?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up at?
That was Ferndale, Michigan, suburbs north of Detroit.
Okay. So you're around the age of our previous guest, George, that did a little high school acting. He told us, and I asked Sam this too, because he went to a boys' school, but did you ever hear of actors or kids going to other schools and auditioning for plays?
No.
Was that a thing back then when you were?
Not in high school, though. There were I do remember there were one-act festivals, and all the schools would have their own one-act festival, and then the winners of those would go to other schools and compete in other schools' one-act festivals. We did that. So I was in a number of one-act plays in other high schools.
Okay. Do you ever go back and do any stage acting?
I did for a while. Yeah, I did The Illusion here in Woodstock. Michael Christopher was the director on that. That was fun. 17th century French tragedy comedy with wigs and boots and sword fighting, the whole bit. That was fun. They built a stage out behind the Bearsville Theater. So you have the woods behind the stage and the creek running along the side, except nobody thought about the dew. And we're wearing these boots and supposed to be doing sword fighting. And you know what? As soon as it got dark, that stage got really slippery.
Slick.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I know exactly where that that Bearsville Theater is. It's a neat little place. All right. Did I miss anything, Ray? That you'd like to get in there before we bring?
The only thing I would ask is, do you have anything acting wise coming up or sculpting wise that you're doing currently?
We produce a free stone carving class every summer in the mountaintop, and you should come to that if you can get up to Hunter. It's usually late August, early September in that vicinity. And we have a website for that too. I don't have a thing, but it's freehscs.com. That stands for the Hunter Stone Carving Seminar. freehscs.com. And there's a lot of pictures and so on. Lots of shots of students from previous classes. This year was our 15th year for that.
Wow.
Yeah, we've taught hundreds of people to carve bluestone. And as young as 4. We had a 4-year-old carving with an air hammer.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's not as hard as people think. They mistake the hardness of the medium for difficulty working it. when primitive peoples did this with like a sharp rock held in their hand. We have much better tools.
Yeah. And I imagine that you get a lot of your fans also come up there just to hang out with you for the day, right?
We've had a few of them. Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool, Kevin. And I will post all of the links in the description of the podcast as well, too, wherever you're listening on YouTube or Spotify or wherever people are listening. All right. You ready for the fan questions, Kevin?
Sure.
All right. Let's bring Tony on. Tony, how are you, man?
Hey, doing really good. Thanks, Casey, Ray, for having me on. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of yours. I was really excited to be invited to do this. So,
thank you.
Once I heard who the guest was, I was like, "Yes, Casey, please, please let me come on." So, I'll try to keep it brief. I'll try to keep with a couple of notes that I'm taking here. Hopefully, are going to make sense when I say them out loud. So, just speaking of the seminar, I had actually written that down. That's a really amazing thing that you put that on, and that sounds like a really awesome time. What I was going to lead into with that was one of the things that I found made me a big fan of Basket Case, and of yours, was like your enthusiasm for that movie. And now doing this interview, I realized that is an enthusiasm you bring to everything that you do. I think that's really amazing, and I was going to mention that seminar is a big part of that.
Well, there's two things that we humans respond to. They are confidence, and just I blanked out on the second one, but
Memory, maybe.
energy, confidence, and energy, and that's what they teach us in acting school. If you're going to make a mistake, make it really big.
Absolutely. The question I had wanted to ask to you, I was really interested watching Basket Case and Brain Damage in that kind of area on the Bowery and that whole neighborhood. What was it like just, living in New York in that area at that time? I mean, I think just the rest of us who are not old enough or didn't live there see that in movies, and it just, how close to that was what you guys were living there every day.
Yeah, what you see is what it was like. New York City in the mid-'70s was at the bottom of an economic trough, and even in the late '70s, when we filmed Basket Case, it was rough and it was sleazy. There were places where you didn't walk unless you had weapons or a large group. I remember hearing pitched gun battles in the East Village in those days. So yeah, it was weird. Originally, the Hotel Broslin was Frank had picked out a place that suited what he was looking for. That was just kitty corner, like diagonally across from Madison Square Garden. And we were going there, and we were setting up for something. And there were like bums hanging around saying, if you give me $50, I won't steal your cables, kind of a thing. So we realized that wasn't going to work. And it ended up, the Hotel Broslin was a composition of several locations, including a set that we built in Uji's Loft. Mm-hmm.
If you guys are looking for a sad documentary to watch, the documentary on the Sunshine Hotel is amazing and heartbreaking. So that whole time period in that area and stuff, it's just always fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Tony.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Kevin. Our next fan question here is from Turnpike James. Do you have any pets? And if so, what kind and names, please?
No pets.
No pets.
After having 2 kids, I don't want to take care of anything. Not even.
All right. Donnie Morgan would like to know, do you consider yourself an actor who sculpts or a sculptor who acts?
Well, now a sculptor who acts. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Tim Earnshaw would like to know which scene that you acted in made you laugh the hardest, be it on set or viewing later.
Oh, the scene where I have to throw a blanket over Terry and throw her out into the hall. That has always cracked me up.
My favorite part is in the beginning when the lady is walking you up the steps and she just stops and turns around and goes back down the stairs.
Yeah.
I crack up every time I see that part. It's so good. All right. The Graveyard Club podcast, and they are a part of our network, the Deluxe Edition Network. What is your opinion on the different vibe and the direction of the two sequels?
That's a great question. So we had an actual budget for the second and third film, something that was completely unheard of in the first film. First one was shot in 16. There's a thing called in the film era, there was a thing called short ends. So if somebody, needs to buy, I don't know how big the rolls were to start off with, but let's say they need 40 minutes of film and there's, 3 minutes of film left, they would sell those as short ends at a discount. So, and I think part of that financial problem is why the film turned out so nice, because I was trained as a theater actor, a stage actor, and we like rehearsal. And Frank would say, we've got film for one take, so we're going to rehearse this until everybody's good, till the lights are good, till the sound is good, till everything is perfect, and then we're going to film one take of it. And I like working that way. So
yeah.
I've completely digressed away from the question. I'm sorry.
No, all good. Your opinion on the different vibe and the direction that the two sequels went in.
Right. So in the second and the third one, we had actual budget. And so that changes the way you work. And also, Frank and Gabe decided that it would be a great idea to have all these freaks. You should have seen the effects shop for those two films. They were crazy. These guys are crazy.
A lot of the budget went towards a lot of those effects, right? The practical effects for those creatures.
Mm-hmm. But and then of course the legendary Annie Ross. She was amazing to work with. And personally, my favorite is the first one because of the way we worked. For one thing, if you can spend 3 or 4 weeks preparing for one scene, you feel pretty ready for it, Yeah, it's different. It's a different type of film. If I were ever to do a fourth one, I think I would want to switch back to 16 millimeter film and do it the same way we did the first one.
Guerrilla style. I like that.
Yeah. That's actually in my notes here. We're gonna get to that, so don't say any more about that just yet. Shannon Wellen, who runs
Shannon, how you doing, Shannon?
you know Shannon. He runs the Basket Case Facebook page.
Of course.
He wants to know. He says Basket Case was shot in chunks. How many different times did you have to show up, and for how long did you have to be dedicated to the role as Dwayne?
Oh, we spent almost a year filming it. We'd work on weekends or the evenings. The process was we'd film something. Frank would put together a rough assemblage, show it to someone, get more money, and repeat. We did that endlessly. Frank would say, we need this, or we need a toilet. And we'd hop in Edgar's van and drive around the East Village till we found a toilet on the street. Or if you look at the room, both Dwayne's room and Casey's room are the same room, just redecorated. And you notice there's like a pipe going up in the corner by the bathroom. That's the cardboard center of a roll of cloth that we found in the garment district.
That's awesome. Things you. Now I have to watch it again to see that. Let's see. Shannon also says, I have never heard him speak about Basket Case 3. Would love to hear everything he has to say about the experience on Basket Case 3.
So we had a suit, an in-house suit on the production to keep track of us. And at the end of the first week, they have a formula. So many pages of script should equal so many minutes of screen. So at the end of the first week, he came to us, we're ahead, we got to cut something. So Frank made a choice, cut a scene, and we went on, The last week of filming, the suit's back in a panic. We're short. We need one more scene. Well, by now we've lost the location for that scene that we trashed. So, and they didn't want Frank to write something new. That's the other. He said, no. So, of course, that night he writes a scene. And in the morning, we go to I think it's the sheriff's office, the police station that we trash. And I don't know, we get there in the middle of the afternoon, and I spend the afternoon and the evening pacing the parking lot, trying to learn the lines while they set up the lights and the cameras, moves and all that stuff. And that's the scene where I come running down the hill talking about a shoe store, I think, and I discovered that Belial's been shot. That's the scene that we added.
Okay. All right. So, all right, you mentioned Basket Case 4. So, I've heard you say this before. You've had a treatment for this for years now. Case 4. Is it still? You still have that? Are you still working on it? What's the deal, Kevin? Let's get this thing made.
I would love to do a fourth film, but it wouldn't be Basket Case 4. It would be the twins as they are now, today. But mind you, now there's 11 baby Belials who are now in their mid-20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their associated partners. And all craziness is about.
Yeah, I watched that last night, but I was sort of dozing off during the third one. I thought there were 12 babies. Did one of the children get killed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I've heard you say 11.
The daughter, when she's shot, sits on one.
Okay. All right. All right. So. You know about there's crowdfunding and all this stuff now, right? Like Kickstarter, GoFundMe. Mm-hmm. Let's get this thing made, man.
I would love to do that. Because and part of it, we've always had Belial has a little rubber thing that we tried to animate. With the technology that we have available now, I would play Belial. And we make Belial a real character instead of just this little rabid thing.
Yeah.
And I think that combined with Belial's anatomy, I think becomes very twisted.
There is something special, though, about the 80s practical effects that are very near and dear to my heart.
Yep. Me too.
And I think I'd rather see him as a practical effect in part 4 than a CGI character. Just from my personal experiences is that's a personal thing. Somebody takes a lot of time making that. Like, to me, I think part 4, I really do think there should be a practical effect to him. But, I mean, there could be some CGI effects to it, but if it's from the 80s and it's moving forward to the 70s, it's got to be practical, in my opinion. because it's so personal.
Well, Kevin, you are talking about it. I mean, this would be all practical effects, right?
Mostly. But there would be some CGI that would allow me to play Belial.
Yeah. All right.
It would be kind of a combination, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'd be all right with the combination. I don't want all CGI Avengers, but I need the combination.
Well, that's the trouble, for example, when a guitarist gets a new effects pedal, that's all they play with.
Yeah.
For months.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Eddie Van Halen discovered the keyboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But little by little, once you get used to that effect, then it starts to fall back into the place of an effect. You don't use an effect for the whole movie.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, if you want any help getting this crowdfunded, let Ray and I know. We'd love to help you out. And I think, man, with the cult following that these movies have, and with Joe Bob, behind Joe Bob would definitely be behind a part 4, I'm sure, especially with you writing it.
We'd have to get him in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, man, this has been great. Ray, did I miss anything?
I think we've covered everything that we intended to, but if there's anything we missed, I would love for you to come back and tell us what we missed on another episode.
Absolutely. I'd be delighted. Thank you.
Thanks, man. And please, once again, tell everyone where they can find you. KevinVanH.com. Scrolling across the bottom.
Nice.
Thanks so much, man. This has been a blast.
My
Yes,
pleasure.
sir.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Ron. Do you like movies?
Hey, this is Ragnar. Y'all like alcohol?
Hey guys, this is Stu. Do you like punishments?
Hey everybody, I'm Chase. Do you guys like alcohol poisoning?
And this is Lenny from Barrel Age Flicks. Sobriety is so overrated. Welcome to Season 3, 2023. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. See you there.